other point which comes out is that most Southern African countries, period, do try, especially the historic liberation movements. They conceive the state as a party, and they see it as their right to use the state to remain in power. So that is part of the political structure that does not support the democratization of the presidency, and it does work towards the effective ability for the presidency to rotate from one party to the other. I think also a discussion of this should be extended to looking at opposition politics. Opposition politics, my own view is that there is a tendency to be extremely uneven and unfair. The incumbent party tends to use everything to remain in power, and therefore creates a situation where it is very difficult for one to exercise dissent and not be viewed as a foreign body within the country, or someone who is trying to sell ideas that belong best in Britain or in the United States. So in that sense, when we look at the democratization of the presidency, we can conceive this as a discussion with the political structure and the culture. And I think those two facets have to move more towards gradually changing. I don't think that the dictatorship can merely come to an end. Someone can merely I think individuals definitely. This is a huge. This is partly from the American politics. I think individuals do have a very strong impact on the political platform, but there is also a culture that has to be, and culture takes time, that has to begin to be enacted or to be played out, where people do not see politics as a zero-sum game or a winner-takes-all. The other factor which I think is going to contribute to the culture changing is that I am certain, and I've met many Africans, the background of leadership is gradually changing, where you had people who came out of a tradition of liberation. They wanted to, they hold that very close to their hearts because they carried guns, they fought for it, and so it's so much a part of a very painful experience. And then you have a different generation which is coming, where these are people who have, a more broader thinking or an understanding of how the system works, the international system, and the self-interest of the countries and how this can blend in. And there are also people who don't necessarily see the presidency as a success, as the only way of achieving success. And I had a discussion the other day with a friend, and I said, well, you know what? One thing which is very fortunate in the case of South Africa is that you look at Mandela, and many people will be shocked. For me, that is, I always see him as someone who's an aristocrat. He was an aristocrat in the very noble sense. I don't want to take away from all of his ideas and what he believes in, but he was an aristocrat in the sense that he was born into to more comfort than the average South African. And Mandela was a lawyer when most black South Africans couldn't even conceive of entering courtrooms unless they were on trial. And he was born, he was a lawyer, he had that background. So for him, he didn't conceive the idea of, I need this is my life, this is what I need to become a better man, to make myself. For him, it's sort of an extension of his work, an extension of his growth. And I think certainly if trends continue the way they continue, most African countries will have those type of individuals like Mandela who do not who have that very strong background and those roots, not necessarily in aristocracy, but in sort of some kind of social training, background, and skills that do not allow them to just abrogate the constitution and take things into their own hands. In other words, these are people and individuals who have come about through a different process, and that's definitely the trend I'm looking at. So I think to round up my my contribution to the discussion, my points in summary are that the looking at democratization is a broad discussion, and it's so broad that you can talk a lot of things and say nothing. So my points have been based on looking at presidential democratization, which seeks to say that let's have the executive branch of government changed. No, not changed, but let's have the executive branch of government able to conduct democracy. And if they are able to do so, then they can influence the judiciary, they can influence the legislature. I do believe that a lot of the power of dictatorships comes from how they abrogate the law and how laws do not function. So in most instances, I think to discuss democratization, Southern Africa, you really have to look at it at a point, from a point of view that how best can we make sure that it's not easy to override laws. It's not easy that laws become one person's source of political survival. So there is that process, and I think it will begin with leadership. My own understanding of politics, and not merely just politics in this government sense, but in its very traditional form. I believe that a lot of the successes with ideas are as a result of of leadership. 90% of what happens to an idea depends on a leader. I strongly believe that a leader can take a very good idea and make dismal out of it and make it dysfunctional, and a very good leader can take a somewhat mediocre idea and expand on it and certainly make some positive results. So in summary, that is my feeling on the direction that I think presidential democratization should take. The executive has to be strongly re-evaluated from the position of constitutional powers, and also from the much, we hope that the background of individuals entering politics is gradually changing. And someone has told me that things take time, so hopefully next 30 to 40 years we will see different individuals who are able to step down honorably, and they do not see it as a fight to the last man. Thank you.